The morning sunlight spilled over the quiet suburban street like a warm blessing, but inside a small rented house on the corner, life was anything but easy. 42-year-old single dad Ariz Halim stood in the doorway, staring at the worn-out shoes of his 12-year-old son Mikhail, feeling the familiar weight of guilt press against his chest. Bills were piled on the kitchen counter, his car engine had died the previous night, and the double shift at the hardware store had left his back aching so badly he could barely stand straight. Yet none of the struggle hurt him as much as the helplessness of seeing his child grow up in a world where he could give so little. But that morning, before Ariz could step out and begin another exhausting day, a sound shattered the silence, a sudden screech of tires followed by a loud crash on the road outside. It was the kind of sound that made a person's heart stop before their legs even moved. If you believe kindness and second chances can change a life, make sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe to Kindness Chronicles. Your support truly keeps these stories alive. Ariz rushed toward the street, his instinct to help stronger than the pain in his body. The scene that greeted him was unexpected and jarring. A sleek black motorcycle lay toppled on its side, its wheels still spinning, and beside it, a young woman in a dark jacket was trying to pull herself up, wincing in pain. Her helmet had rolled off, revealing long auburn hair tumbling over her shoulder, messy and windswept. She looked about 31, her features sharp yet soft, the kind of woman who carried a quiet confidence even in chaos. Ariz didn't know her name yet, but her life was about to intertwine with his in ways neither could imagine. He hurried toward her, heart pounding, hands trembling, partly from fear, partly from the overwhelming urge to protect. The woman blinked against the sunlight, clearly dazed, muttering something under her breath as she tried to straighten her bike. But her right leg buckled, and she sank to the ground again. Without hesitation, Ariz bent down, gently placing a steadying hand on her shoulder, afraid she might collapse entirely. The woman, later known as Serena Voss, had never expected her search for something real, something human, would begin with a crash outside the home of a man who knew more about struggle than she had ever experienced. Serena came from wealth that stretched further than continents. She was the hidden heiress of a global corporation, but her life had never felt like her own. Every relationship she attempted dissolved into the same hollow truth: they wanted her money, not her heart. So she shed her billionaire identity, picked up a motorcycle, put on worn jeans, and took to the road searching for authenticity like a traveler crossing deserts in search of water. Yet fate had a different plan for her that morning, as she lay injured on a quiet street with a man kneeling beside her, who saw nothing but a stranger in need. Ariz helped her stand, noticing the grimace on her face when she tried to put weight on her leg. Her jacket was dusty, her palms scraped, but what worried him more were her unfocused eyes and the stiffness in her posture. Without thinking twice, he slipped her arm over his shoulder and walked her toward his house. She tried insisting she was fine, but the weakness in her limbs betrayed her words. Inside the modest living room, flooded with gentle daylight, Mikhail stared wide-eyed, clutching his backpack, surprised to see his father supporting a stranger. Ariz managed to guide her to the couch, the thin foam cushions dipping under her weight. He fetched a small first aid kit, the same one he kept for his son's minor scrapes, though it felt painfully insufficient for a grown woman's injuries. Serena watched him quietly, her breathing still uneven. She wasn't used to kindness without expectation, and certainly not from someone who seemed so burdened by his own troubles. She noticed the cracked paint on the walls, the worn furniture, the school books stacked carefully in the corner, and the kind, tired eyes of the man who moved around the room with gentle urgency. For the first time in months, she felt disarmed, not by fear, but by warmth. Ariz cleaned the cuts on her palms, then examined her ankle, which was swelling quickly. The pain made her wince, and immediately he began searching for something to use as a cold compress. He found a bag of frozen peas in the freezer, one he had been saving for dinner, and wrapped it in a kitchen towel before placing it carefully on her ankle. The hours that followed carried a strange, calming rhythm. Ariz called a mechanic for her motorcycle, prepared tea even though he barely had groceries left, and insisted she rest until the dizziness passed. Serena, who had spent years surrounded by people who bowed to her wealth, was humbled by this simple man's sincerity. Mikhail, after initial hesitation, began asking her about her bike, his curiosity bubbling over, especially when he learned she traveled alone. Serena smiled softly, answering in a steady, encouraging tone that made the boy's eyes brighten. In that sunlight-filled room, something gentle began to form, a connection neither of them had sought but both felt deeply. Aries felt shock slam into him like a wave. His knees nearly buckled. He stepped back, overwhelmed by disbelief. His mind rushed with questions, insecurities, fears. Why would someone like her ever want to stay with someone like him? What did she really want? Was this all temporary? Serena watched his turmoil, her eyes shining with sincerity as she explained she had nothing to gain from lying. She only wanted trust, honesty, and a chance to stay, not out of pity but love. The sunlight softened around them, and the silence stretched heavy and emotional. Aries realized the woman he had helped on the road was not defined by her wealth, but by the kindness she showed his son. The warmth she brought into their home, and the strength she carried in her eyes. Slowly, he stepped closer, feeling his fears melt into something softer. Their lives didn't magically fix overnight. There were still hardships to face, conversations to have, trust to rebuild. But together, under the glow of the setting day, they found something more powerful than wealth or struggle: hope. A hope that maybe, just maybe, they could build a future not built on fortune, but on the kind of love that finds you when you least expect it. If this story touched your heart, please like, comment, share, and subscribe to Kindness Chronicles. Your engagement truly helps these emotional stories reach more people. Special request: comment "Kindness lives on" if you finish the story.